Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our first Let's Talk networking event for 2022. We are going to be discussing everything engineering careers versus non-engineering careers and entrepreneurship today. So with that, we have an amazing line of panelists who are doing amazing things. They're all women with engineering backgrounds, engineering degrees, but they're doing very different things within their own rights. But before we go into the event, we are going to take part in a very short icebreaker, and the idea is to help you loosen up. Hopefully you can start to make some connections amongst other participants on the call, and definitely with our panelists as well. But we do have three situations, and we would like you to give us your ideas, your opinion, and your advices. If you don't mind doing that with the chat function, that would be absolutely superb. Right, so our first dilemma is of someone that's worked in the same industry for over 15 years, and now the person is facing, or the person thinks they're facing, this a mid-career crisis. They've gathered a great amount of experience within the industry that they've been working in over the past 15 years and in all the roles that they've been doing, but they would like to do something different, something that they find challenging and that can help them grow. So what would you advise this person to do? Would you advise that they go back to university and start again from scratch? Or would you advise that they pivot into whatever industry they want to go to? Have you been in a similar situation, or do you know someone that's been in a similar situation, and how did they manage this? Okay, so we have a number of people that would pivot. Why would you pivot straight into something else if you want something challenging? Why would you advise that they pivot straight into something else instead of maybe going to university, or maybe taking a gap year, taking a year out of studying or out of working? Someone said take online courses. I think that's a very good idea. That's a very, very good suggestion. One of our panelists has been in a similar situation, and she made a decision to pivot. However, she does advise that, the person should do some homework before deciding which route to take. That's awesome. Take some time to research into what you want to do. I think that's a very, very important thing to do, because a lot of people have already been through this situation, or are going through the situation at the moment, or possibly might go into that situation in the future. So it's great to see the different advices that we are sharing in the group chat. Thank you so much for taking part. Right, so the second situation is this. I've always thought that I wanted to be chartered. My company has promised to sponsor my chartership application. Since starting my role, I haven't been signposted to anyone to mentor me, and now I've been told that the company does not have the budget for my chartership anymore. What would you advise this individual to do? Would you advise them to forget about applying for their chartership, or would you advise that they self-sponsor the chartership? Or would you advise them to do, if you've been in the situation before, if you know someone that's been in the situation before, what have they done, and how would you deal with this situation? Without further ado, we will be introducing our panelists to everybody. we have Dr. Yumna Mohammed. She is the founder of Mayana Naturals. She has a bachelor's degree in chemistry and physics from Marseille Aix University and a M.Sci in physics from Leeds University, and ultimately a PhD in polymer physics from Sheffield University. She's also an inspirational award-winning scientist, and she has won the Chawera Teg Women Spire 2020 STEM Award and the Talents from French Overseas Department in 2022. Next up on our panel, we have engineer Lola Adetona. She's a registered civil engineer and project management professional. She was the chairperson of the Nigerian Institute of Civil Engineers, the Lagos chapter, and the first female engineer to attain this position. She then became the national vice chairman of the Nigerian Institute of Civil Engineers and is presently a Nigerian Institute of Civil Engineers National Council member. She's also the vice chairman of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, the Lagos branch, and she's the founder, CEO of Engineering Resources Academy, an academy that bridges the gap in training and development of young engineers. And lastly, we have Uche Izuka. She's a certified supply chain professional and certified project manager with over 11 years experience in supply chain and operations management. Uche started her career in a FTSE 100 at FTSE 100 company as a management trainee, and upon completing her program, she went on to hold various managerial positions across their end-to-end supply chain. Recently, she's joined the NHS as the head of blood supply chain planning, and in her current role, she's responsible for the demand, session, and supply stock and distribution planning for blood components supplied to all hospitals in England. So would you please join me in welcoming to the stage Engineer Lola, Dr. Yumna Mohammed, and Uche. Hi, Dr. Lola.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi, good evening. Nice to meet you. Hi, Yumna.
Hello, everyone. I'm really pleased to be here.
Also great to have you here too. And lastly, not the least, hi, Uche.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you here. So I guess we'll are going to start with the discussion, but I would also like to ask in the audience if you do have any questions for any of the panelists during the discussion, please feel free to put that in the chat section, and we will be sure to pick this up and ask the panelists for you before the end of the program. So without further ado, I would like to go to Dr. Yumna first. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your career journey?
Oh, yeah, sure. So I'm French, so things are a bit different to be able to do engineering. I wanted to do engineering, but to do engineering in France, you first have to do 2 years foundation to then do a huge exam to enter the engineering school. So I was not successful to actually, I got to do the foundation year, but I couldn't actually enter. I failed the exam, and I failed the exam because of my English. So, but I think it's the best thing that happened to me because it really gave me the will to actually speak English. So, because the course is quite challenging, you can go straight to second year university instead of starting from scratch. So, I did so, and then as soon as I could, I left for England to Leeds University. And then, you know, I was doing physics because that's where the route I went to the university. But as soon as I could, I came back to engineering because I really like to, actually, I think I'm quite an empirical worker. I love to be in the lab and work with my hands. So as soon as I could, I made the transition to engineering, and I worked in printed electronics, doing research using printing techniques such as flexography, inkjet printing to actually deposit layer with electrical property to do things like pressure sensors, solar panels, and stuff like that. And I really, really loved it until it was time for a change.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Thank you very much. Engineer Lola, would you like to tell us a little bit about your career journey to what you're doing now?
My name is Lola Detono. I am a civil engineer. I I've been a registered civil engineer now like for 25 years. I studied in civil, then I went for my master's in construction management, and then I got a doctorate degree in civil engineer just recently. My passions are reading, giving back. I have an NGO called Engineering Resource Academy, and in the academy, what we do is bridge the gap. In Nigeria, we have challenges with fresh graduates coming from the university and what the clients demand to make them employable. So we put them together, then we teach them what they need to know. We teach them things like soft skill training. I enjoy what I do. I get to do different things every day, lots of challenges in Nigeria, and it's quite a fulfilling task. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I guess it's engineer doctor that I know. Thank you so much for that introduction. And lastly, Uche, would you like to tell us a little bit about your career journey so far?
Yeah, so I thought just because I didn't put that in my intro, I thought I would start with saying that my background, it really is engineering. I studied chemical engineering as my first degree in Nigeria, University of Lagos. And I suppose I liked it so much, I went and I did a master's still in engineering. So my master's was in chemical engineering and IT in Loughborough University. But I think there was a conception then studying chemical or process engineering. So it was typical. Everyone was thinking you work in oil and gas, So, but I wasn't having any of that. So I think I was one of the few that was like, I do not want to work in oil and gas. So I was thinking, okay, so where do I want to work? And I thought, okay, FMCG is a nice middle ground for me. So I started working with British American Tobacco as an operations management trainee. So operations involves manufacturing, engineering, quality, supply chain. But then I think in the course of doing the 2 years of my training, I decided I think I'll have more fun in supply chain than core manufacturing. And so I just pivoted to supply chain at that point, and I've just not looked back since then. So I've spent my entire career outside of my training doing one part of the supply chain or the other. So whether it's the planning bit or logistics or customer service or procurement. And then I also had a stint in finance for almost 2 years. I went and I did a stint with finance. And then I think I got to a point where in the pandemic, I don't know, I hear this happen to a lot of people, but I got to a point in the pandemic when I was thinking, I really want to do more meaningful work. I really, really felt like I wanted to do more meaningful work. And so, yes, I started looking for other opportunities. And this was exactly what I wrote in my chat. I wanted to pivot, but I still wanted to do supply chain because I really, really enjoy supply chain. For me, supply chain is, and I will talk about that further on in terms of how process engineering links really nicely with supply chain, because ultimately what we try to do in supply chain is make sure that what is needed is where it is needed in the form that it is needed. And this is what process engineering really is about. Yeah. So because I really, really wanted to stay in supply chain, I thought I would pivot to an industry that seemed to do a bit more meaningful work. And that was how I ended up in the NHS as the head of planning.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think, I think that's very, very, it's a very similar story to me actually, because I did engineering degree for my undergrad, and then I did a master's also in chemical engineering. Thank you so much, ladies, for telling us a bit more about yourself and your journey so far. So I guess our first question would now delve deeper into the topic for today. Is going to go to Dr. Yumna, who is the inventor for the knife acid Deluxe Detangler. Would you like to tell us what inspired you into entrepreneurship and why you chose to go down this route, and with your own invention and now with your own business?
So I'll first kind of explain or maybe show what is the Deluxe Detangler, so it will make more sense instead of just saying the name. So the Deluxe Detangler is an applicator comb for women with Afro textured hair to actually enable you to apply conditioner and distribute the conditioner at the same time as detangling. So it's very simple to use. You put your conditioner inside and you can actually just, as literally it does what it says, apply your conditioner. So it's been patented, and it's been a long journey to get here. But really, how did I get here from engineering? So in my previous question, I said until it was time for a change. I got to a point where I really got to realize that academia was not for me, because I had no ambitions whatever to become a professor, to be teaching and writing papers. What I actually enjoyed doing was actually being in the lab, that whole creative and innovation process. And also all of the projects I always worked on were with Innovate UK. So a lot of them were about, innovation, and then after that, commercialization. And I didn't get to do the commercialization part, but all of those projects always left me thinking, oh my God, I wonder what is the process to actually take a product to market, really like the full circle. And so it was kind of like, just in my head. And I got to a point where I really felt extremely unfulfilled and really empty, to the point that, just kind of like being quite kind of like depressed of the whole situation, because I had no sense of purpose. I woke up in the morning. The first 2 years of my journey as an academic, I used to have this hashtag called hashtag I love my job, and I would be excited. But as the pressure came to actually climb the ladder, and that's not what I wanted, that really left, and it really impacted me. So, but then I realized, Yumna, you get paid to solve problems. Why not actually solve a problem that is important to you? And so what had happened is, in the final year of my PhD, things can get a bit difficult financially. So I ended up moving in a house and being a living nanny. And there was this beautiful girl that had very thick hair. And she would literally cry every single time that her hair was being done. But then on the top of that, every morning she would cry saying that she wanted her hair straight and in a ponytail. And it really pained me because she couldn't really see her beauty. And I think the huge part of it was actually the pain that she experienced. And so what I wanted actually to do is to invent something that will enable her to really have that experience that I think that at least I say I do have regarding hair care. Because when I think about hair care, I really think of my mom, my sisters, and my auntie, because literally where I'm from, every Sunday, my mom will sit me and my sister do our hair. Of course, tears will be involved, my mom being being an African mom. But because of it's something that we did together, it really gave me the feeling today what I remember is actually that connection with those different women of my life. And so I invited the product because I wanted little girls like Hazel to actually, be less in pain, so they can focus into spending time with their carer or their mother in this specific case. So literally, for me, leaving academia and engineering, actually, I feel like being in entrepreneurship, my aim at the end is really to be focusing more into the innovation aspect of things. Because it's funny, as engineers, when you look at something from far, you don't see all of the different parameters that affect the working mechanism of something, but when you look at it closely. And so I feel like my creativity and that innovation aspect that I was looking into academia, I can explore it more in entrepreneurship, with less pressure regarding writing paper. Different type of pressure, but not the type of pressure that I do not enjoy. So that's pretty much the journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I think a lot of people definitely can understand the frustration of thinking, this is absolutely where you think you wanted to go to, and then potentially losing the passion for it to then find something else that you're very passionate about, but in a different way than what you thought you had initially thought you'd be doing. So you're still following your passion. It's just and solving problems, getting paid to solve problems even, but just not in academia. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Dr. Yumna. Dr. Lola, would you like to tell us a bit why you decided to, work? You studied civil engineering, and you decided to stay in civil engineering up until, now getting your PhD, also in the same field. Would you like to enlighten us on that, please?
You're asking why I decided to study civil engineering and why am I still in the field of civil engineering. It's actually more like asking me my life story. I got to study civil engineering by mistake, really. I wanted to study computer engineering, and then I did the exams and I was selected to read civil engineering. So I told myself I will go there, I will go to the university, and after a year, I will change my course to something else. And when I got to school, I was the only female in my class. That changed my perception of changing the course. So I said, okay, if no female wants to study this course, then I'm going to take it and know what the challenge is. So I I started to stay. It was a 5-year course. It ended up being a 7-year course because of the lecturer strike. And I graduated as, I think, the second best student in my department. I was the only female throughout the 7-year course. Afterwards, getting a job afterwards was easy. I had a lot of opportunities. And then I went for my master's, and we were just two females in the class. The other lady became an academician. She lectures in the Yaba College of Technology, one of the polytechnics we have in Lagos. So we were just two. That actually encouraged me to really want to know why females don't want to study civil engineering. And I continued, and I want to say that I've been really blessed and favored. Most places I found myself, I happen to be the only female in that sphere. I mean, even up till now, it's still quite interesting and challenging. I was the first female chairman, we call it chairman actually, to handle the Nigeria Institution of Civil Engineers in Lagos State. And afterwards, at the national level, I was blessed. I was also the only female among the 3 vice national chairmen. Well, now I'm also a vice chairman to the Nigerian Society of Engineers. So it's been a lonely journey, but we also have a lot of females in engineering career, maybe not civil, mechanical, electrical, aeronautical. We have a lot of female engineers here, but in civil, as at that time, we didn't have so many. But now, there are more awareness, people are more challenged, and we have this association we call Association of Professional Women Engineers in Nigeria. They actually are advocates into female studies, STEM, and with that, they're creating more awarenesses, and a lot more females are interested in studying the engineering courses now. It's something I enjoy. You wake up every morning facing one challenge or another. We've had challenges with meeting collapse in the recent few months. We've had challenges with even quacks dominating the construction industry, something we're still fighting, and we're hoping that we can only just get better. So that's been my story, and I thank you for allowing me to share that this evening. It's been a long and interesting one. We've gone through the engineering, construction, engineering consultancy, and then entrepreneur. It's all encompassing. You can't do one in isolation of another. So it's been a good journey.
Thank you so much, Angelina. That was really enlightening. And I think I like that your passion still shows through in your response, even after so many years of working in the industry. I think that's great, because some people might not feel like it's for them, and because you don't necessarily always have people people in the same field that has had more experience than you, and I've been there and I've done it. So it's nice to see that you have, and you still have a lot of passion for engineering in your voice. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And now, Uche, would you like to, I guess, tell us why you've gone down this route and you didn't necessarily go into engineering, into a typical engineering job? I know you did mention earlier on, you go for the typical kind of engineering industry because you studied at Unilag. So why did you not go down, the typical engineering job with someone that has a chemical engineering degree?
Yeah, so I think just to follow on what Dr. Lola said, we probably had in chemical engineering the largest population of female students. We always had the largest population. But again, when I was in university, that was when chemical engineering was being rebranded in a sense. So there was an emphasis on saying it was more about process engineering than chemical engineering. I don't know if it was because they were trying to get us not to think that it was only about working with chemicals. So maybe there was a bit of rebranding going on at the time, and there was a lot of emphasis on thinking about chemical engineering more as process engineering rather than, just chemicals. So restricting the field that you could work in. I think that rebranding also helped, because then it made me also think that, look, with my process engineering training, and again, if you remember what I said, it's really about it's about a process. If you think about what it really is about, a process, and what are we trying to do, you have inputs, you have outputs, and it's just making sure that you connect the input to the outputs and tighten all the bolts and nuts in between. Yeah. So that already got me thinking that there was already a wider range of industries that I could play in. The other thing was when I started those many years ago, supply chain was not being taught in universities. There was nothing like the supply. We didn't have supply chain courses in the university like we have them now. So I remember when I was working in my department, a lot of us were engineers in the supply chain department, because you need that critical thinking that comes with being an engineer to understand supply chains and make it work. So it was just a natural fit for engineers to actually form the bedrock of the supply chain department, because it wasn't being taught as a course in those days. So a lot of us that were trained as engineers, I remember even one of my colleagues who was actually also trained chemical engineer. So a lot of us that were trained as engineers found ourselves in supply chain because you needed that critical thinking to actually make things work. Yeah, and you still find that as the case now. So what I would say is, yes, it's very easy to say, okay, but supply chain. I mean, now supply chain is being taught as a course in universities, both at undergraduate and postgraduate levels. But I think it's still a natural fit for anyone, certainly, that has studied process engineering, because again, if you think about what are we trying to achieve with process engineering, it's still a natural fit for anyone who has studied process engineering. And it's the same. The industries, the bonus I would say is it opens up a world of industries to you. So I've worked in fast moving consumer goods. I'm currently working in health. I can work in the airline industry. I can work in core. I can work in oil and gas, because supply chain is relevant to everything that you do. Yeah, so it actually opens up a wealth of industries and opportunities for you, because you just take that critical thinking that you learn from being an engineer and you can apply it, across many supply chains, irrespective of industry.
Absolutely, and you're absolutely right. The versatility of someone with your kind of experience across many different industries is something that a lot of people would definitely, find admirable. It's something that's very, very desiring, particularly with engineering, because engineering in itself is also quite a versatile course. So I'd like to throw a question to Dr. Yumna. So now that you work as an entrepreneur with your own invention, how regularly do you find yourself working with engineers that are, you know, seasoned engineers further along in their career with what you do?
Currently, actually, not much. Not much at this stage, simply because now, you know, the process of the R&D, in the process of the R&D, I work with different engineers, but also kind of like mechanical engineers, but also design, you know, because it's all about, you know, at the end of the day, you want something that is functional, but also something that is pretty to actually, and something that will give you a great experience. So now that the R&D is finished, is actually not right. Manufacturing, actually. And now I'm in the process of doing a pre-order campaign to actually manufacture the product. So that got lots of engineering regarding making the tool, you know, making sure, you know, because, you know, you don't want to make a mistake when you make a tool for something that costs you so much money. So it's a lot of, you know, the working with experts regarding, you know, making sure that we have the right density, you know, regarding the different part of the mold, regarding we have the right finish. So I am still getting to actually do a little bit of science and actually learn from other people, because I'm not a mechanical engineer. I don't know much about injection molding, but actually I'm getting to learn a lot in those different channels. And yeah, and I guess once this phase of manufacturing is completed, you know, the next learning phases for me, where I'm hoping to be regarding, you know, enjoying this creativity and giving myself a safe space and a great space to actually be creative, it will definitely be into doing incremental improvement on the product, you know, because, you know, it's just like everything that goes in the market. You put it out there and then you hear your customers, what they say, what can be improved, and actually you take it to account. So that's where actually I would love to see myself be, and potentially with a little team of individuals to just, you know, do a bit of incremental development there. Who knows, maybe completely new innovation, because the natural hair or the alpha textured hair domain, we have lots of work being done into conditioner, shampoo, but actually into tools that actually facilitate the maintenance, you know, there is not much. And actually, when I first had my idea, it took me a long time to act on it, because I thought this is way too simple. Why nobody thought about it? So it's just like, how many things are there that could add value to us? And so what I'm hoping is to kind of like create that space for me, and also kind of like making sure to do what I've been doing up till now. So although I'm an engineer, I'm a scientist. I have a creative mind. I'm a great problem solver, and I'm a Black woman. I make sure that into every single stage of the R&D for now with the product, I got other women involved. Yeah. So I want to kind of like build this mindset in the business of community-led innovation. Is actually the customer that actually dictate and decide what innovation we need to work on. That is something really I wanna keep on doing, and I'm looking forward to innovating more.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for that, Yumna. I'd like to throw this question to Uche. So now that you're in supply chain, do you find yourself using any of the skills that you acquired, you know, when you were studying engineering, that you're grateful that you have the skills because you studied engineering and it's applicable to what you're doing now? It could be practical, it could be a transferable skill.
I think the core skills that we learn in engineering really is critical thinking. And especially if you're working in, so for example, when you're working with products in a lab and you're trying to understand, I want to get this output, what are the things that I require as inputs, what are the factors that I need to consider, what is the, so think about oil and gas, nuclear reactors, what is the right temperature, so what is the enabling environment to support that would enable these inputs to become these outputs. You still think of all those things in supply chain. It's just that probably you're not thinking about reactors, or you're not thinking about chemicals, but it's probably a different set of, so you have an input. So for example, my input is the product from a factory. Yeah. So again, you've got a product coming out of a factory, but I need to get it somewhere. But I'm also thinking, if you think about your food, think about your milk, think about your bread, think about eggs. what are the right conditions for me to store them? What are the right conditions for me to transport them? What are the right, how should they be handled so that they maintain the integrity and the quality that is expected at the output? So all those things that you typically think of, even in manufacturing products, even in industry, are the things you will still think about in supply chain. You have to, otherwise the output would not be what you desire as the output. So you will still need to think about all of those things. Dr. Lola mentioned, when you don't have the right quality processes in place, you have quacks, and then so you probably don't have the right quality of buildings. It's the same thing with supply chain. You need to make sure that you're using the right materials, whether they be storage materials or handling materials. You're using the right experts in the business. You're using the right suppliers. It's similar considerations. The only thing is that you're applying those considerations on sort of a different scale or different subjects, I would say. But I think there's just is similar considerations. This is why I said it really is transferable skills. It really is. And I would just say this, and that's why it's so brilliant, because I can sell myself in any industry. I swear. I would just not, for me, what you need me to do is deliver a process. Yeah, and I would deliver the process irrespective of the industry. That's why it's just brilliant.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Uche. I think that's very, very insightful, because sometimes we tend to focus on the technical aspects of an engineering degree, such that, it sometimes can be difficult for especially younger people to understand that you can go on to do other things with the skills that you've acquired with your engineering degree and still be quite successful at it. I know of people that we studied together, and now they are working in so many different industries, in finance, in consulting, and you would have never thought this when you were studying and learning about all the different principles and fluid dynamics and thermodynamics and all this stuff like that. So thank you so much for highlighting the fact that some of this transferable skills is not necessarily core just for engineering jobs. It can be transferred into other degrees or other roles as well. So thank you for that. Engineer Lala, our question for you is, because you've you've worked for so long within engineering before you then went on to doing entrepreneurship, what inspired you to look outside of engineering, to then looking to add entrepreneurship to to what you do? And how did you get to that place in your career to decide enough that maybe you've done enough engineering, you've done enough technical work, and now you want to go to entrepreneurship? What was it for you?
Being a civil engineer is enough work already. It means you wake up early in the morning, you take care of the home front, then you get to work, face the challenges, come back. And doing this over the years, you'll find out that there are areas where there are gaps to be filled. There are areas where there are challenges and nobody seems to be addressing it. And then you look inwards and say, do I have the strength to do this? Okay, how do I impact my immediate community? How do I impact this young generation coming up now? So that was what actually made me go into entrepreneurship. I actually love academics. Anything that has to do with education is my passion. During the COVID, I initiated online training. Every Saturday, we will have one of the civil engineering graduates, one of the elders in the profession, talking about something everybody should know about the civil engineering. And this actually went viral. I had a lot of young engineers calling me to say, please, madam, can you please come to our school and give us a talk on this topic? Can we still, there were lots of communication and a lot of trainings. And I thought, okay, something really is missing. Nobody's talking to these young engineers anymore. What can we do about it? Before you know it, all the young engineers started calling me mommy. So I became all the young engineers' mother. Mommy here, mommy there. I said, now I know where my path is. So we started putting them together, having lectures,
And then we had a physical training, we're teaching them structures. And they all came, we had about 130 young engineers in that session. It was for 6 weeks, and they came consistently. Wow. And so that means that what they're teaching them in school is not what they really feel that they need to know. So there is more that we needed to give them. So we did that. At the end of it, they put their money together and bought the institution a speaker and a microphone as this form of appreciation, and that really touched me that, look, there's more to be done, So I had to take it a step further. So I put together the academy with some other stakeholders. You can't do these things on your own. So we did that. We started giving lectures. We sent out a questionnaire, looked for which areas we feel we had a gap. Which area do we need to put input? We also had lectures, or let me say meetings with our clients. We found out that usually they come and they say, Lola, do you have a young engineer that needs a job? I have an opening. And the feedbacks I was getting was that they were not up to their expectations. They weren't performing in the areas where they needed them to perform. So we needed to say, okay, this is what the clients expect. They want soft skill trainings. They want safety trainings. They want them to be able to design. They needed them to be able to manage the store. Give them a report. They must have report writing skills so that at the end of every day, they put together a report and send to their boss so that he uses that to plan ahead, And then we said, okay, let's put this academy together and let's put them on an internship program. Now, the internship means that for 2 weeks, we will teach them all the soft skills, all the requirements they need to know. How do you change a bill of quantities to a material schedule? How do you take levels? Sorry, I'm talking specific civil engineering. All the primitives that they need to know, which we feel that they should have taught them in school. We'll teach them through that for 2 weeks. We're depending on other professionals that we have been along the journey together, friends and family of the profession. And then afterwards, we will post them to this construction site. Now, in engineering, in civil, let me be civil specific now. You could be a consultant. You could have your passion for drawing, making designs. You could also prefer that you want to do project supervision. You don't want to be bothered with taking drawings. You could also want to be a facility manager and go into maintenance. So we decided to look at the areas of strength. Which areas do they have or do they desire to excel? And then we'll talk to possible clients to take them on for 6 months. Now, at the end of 6 months, what happens? If they have performed exceedingly well, the clients have the opportunity to employ them directly into their company. So that means that reduces the number of unemployed graduates. Now, if the company feels that, no, I'm not too happy with his performance, well, we now have trained young graduates that we can recommend for jobs for other people. During this internship, we'll go there, monitor what they do, put together a report at the end of it. It's been a long journey, but the good thing is that the feedback has been wonderful. People are coming and say, please, do you have young graduates that you have trained? I don't want the one that has not passed through you, Lola. Please give us the one that you have trained. I have employment for that. And that actually was like the gift for the whole session. And that told me, yes, we're in the right trade. Keep it up. And I got encouraged. And as a mother, let me tell you what happened. An opportunity came up. My parents died. So their house was empty. So what did I do? I converted it into a nursery and primary school. I started teaching the young ones as well, because we found out that these graduates get to a certain age that they're not learning, or you feel that the background was not well nourished, that there are things you expect, that ethics in our profession is something that we feel that from when you were in nursery school, you should have been, it's like teaching you mathematics. Everybody should have integrity in what they do. They should have passion to deliver, And we have such challenges in our environment here. Focus. What do they need to focus on? There's so much distraction in the world these days. So we decided to put together a school, and as God will have it, we are increasing every day. Now I think we have about almost 30 pupils in the school also learning and getting better, because the way we're wired, to be an entrepreneur, you must have gone through your SWOT analysis, the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the traits. You must know where your area of strength is. You must know what you want. When they wake you in the middle of the night, you jump out of bed and you want to do it. You don't think twice about it. What are your weaknesses? What are things you don't like doing? Delegate that part of you to somebody else, somebody that has a flair for it. For instance, I love cooking, but I don't like washing plates. So I could cook, and then I get the maid to wash the plates, you know. And then what opportunities do you have out there? And then what are the traits? When you put this thing together, you find out that you can actually make a way with this. Unfortunately, women have more strength. Women are multi-talented. We can do so many things simultaneously. That is what God has blessed us with, that makes us a bit higher than our male sector. So you can be cooking and singing and taking care of a baby and taking notes from the Zoom platform and putting food in your mouth at the same time. And we don't feel like we're doing something extra. You know, we just do it so naturally, as if it's the norm.
Thank you so much, Angelina. I think that's, I mean, what you said, again, the energy. I think Dr. Yumna's just put in the group chat as well, like your energy and your passion is so contagious. And we appreciate the fact that, you know, you're doing what you're doing, but that's not the standard, you know, that's not what, you know, you don't go into engineering thinking that you're going to try to want to be paving the way for younger engineers coming. So it's amazing that this is what you're doing. And I think it's something that more people should be doing. Which kind of brings me to the next question. And I think I'm going to direct this question to Dr. Yumna. So now that you're, you know, with your career journey and with your career journey to where you are now and working as an entrepreneur and making that decision to go fully into entrepreneurship, how do you think you would have managed it if you knew from the get-go, you know, with your degree that I'm going to study engineering and I want to go into business? Do you think that you would have followed a similar path? Do you think that it's something that you would have maybe changed part of the modules that you studied when you were in university, or while you were doing your PhD? Would you even have done your PhD if you knew that you were going to maybe want to go into entrepreneurship much earlier?
You know, I think people have to be very mindful to know that some people have a straight path and they follow that path. Some people just keep on stumbling into things. Okay.
Yes.
So for me, I just kept on stumbling. To be fair, when I finished my BSc, I was like, academia, not academia, should I go for it? So I decided to get an internship during the summer. And then after that, I was like, yeah, it looks cool, but I'm not really sure. I didn't feel it. But I was just like, you know what? I'm in this. Let me carry. And then I ended up finishing my degree. But literally, I finished my degree at the recession in 2008. So there again is like, you know, I'm, you know, my family, I have no family here. And I was like, I need to leave. I can't go back to my mom and dad, ask them for money. So do I get a job? Or, you know, the opportunity of the PhD came along. I took it. And really, like till today, my PhD supervisor know that it was not my first choice, but I needed to survive. And plus that idea of an academia was still in my head. And so many times in the middle of my PhD, I thought of quitting. I was like, should I quit and start teaching a dance class because I'm passionate about dance? Should I teach and open a restaurant? But I kept on pressing. And then I got my PhD, and that was really the moment where I just like, Yumna, you know, try to be in a space that you're going to enjoy the things that you're doing. Is a difference between being good at something and actually finding fulfilling and actually finding joy into it. So at the end of my PhD was very technical, like, studying a very simple process called spin coating, in which you apply thin layers on the top of using centrifugal forces. And I was just like, I want to use my hands. I want to be creative. And I start thinking, what are the skills that I do have? And that is something really, I think, if you're a student, to kind of like think about, what are the skills that I do have? What do I enjoy doing? Where can I actually add value with my skill and still get to enjoy what I like doing? So I literally, once again, I say I'm stumbling to think, I ended up finding that there was a conference about printed electronics. I registered just in 2 days, showed up. I just woke up to this guy and like, I'm looking for a job. He was like, I'm looking for somebody with your skill. And that's how things happen. And then when it's come to the whole thing with actually entrepreneurship, I had no interest whatever into business. Okay. Part of it was really due to my mindset and my relationship with money. Some area, when you're born from a mother's background, you are taught that money corrupts, money change, and a lot of different mindset, and kind of build this type of resentment towards people who go for money. And so I had that mindset. So business was never something that even actually crossed my mind, and I used to stay away from it. It's just when I find myself in a space where there was so much lack of fulfillment into what I was doing, and I had no sense of purpose, that I was impacting, making people's lives different. And the idea come along that I entertained the idea for literally 2 years. For 2 years, I didn't do anything, as I say, because my mindset was wrong, and I had huge challenges regarding my self-belief. And so really, where everything locked for me with the business, and actually the drive to follow the business came through, is when I really took the time. And somebody said earlier, Uche said earlier, taking the time to actually, decide what is your next step, is when I got to realize that the business is a mean to live my life purpose. Because I realized that everything that I was doing outside of work that brought me joy had nothing to do with science or engineering. It had all to do with people, empowering people. Whether it was like I was teaching a dance class, I was working with women in kind of like, showing young women, doing outreach to inspire young women to do science. I was having a little network that bringing together African students to speak to them, empower them. That's what brought me alive, And all of that was not at work. I had my skill as a scientist, and I was doing well. I was writing those papers with all of the pain that had to go through the process to write them. But none of that was there. But then when I realized that my product could be a mean of actually changing women's haircare experience and changing their relationship to the hair, I was just like, there my drive came in. But then the next thing where really locked in for me is for me to get where I am today, and I think for me to have, how can I say, the confidence to actually follow my dream, I had loads of support. Not loads of support. I made a huge investment in myself working with a life coach. Because sometimes we don't realize when we come from different background. After Dr. Lola say, it's important that these children know, you are the future, you can make a difference. And that was not something that was so into me. It was the opposite that was so into me. And I needed to be in a place where really I could take the time to actually unravel and let go all of those limiting beliefs and really go to the core of who I am and actually really unlock my potential. And when I realized the impact that coaching had for me, I just thought, I want everybody to do this. I want everybody to actually go to this type of process, but it costs lots of money. And I was an academic. I was able to afford it, making quite lots of sacrifices. So I decided that the business will be a means to live my life purpose, whereby 5% of the profit will go to providing one-to-one coaching to young women. I'm not thinking of actually having a big room or field of young people. I really want them to have that quality of one-to-one working with the coach, to really enable them to go quite deep to really kind of unlock their potential. So there was no It's only now at this age, at this time, that I feel like I'm planning things and the plan is actually what I want. Up till now, I just stumble into things. And in many different ways, sometimes we just have to kind of like chill and see what's gonna come along. Because if I hadn't failed my course the course I was doing in France, in no way I'll have want to come into England. I'll have just stayed in France. And then all of the different chain of things wouldn't have happened. So I would say to a young person, yeah, don't worry if you don't know exactly what you want to do. I will say I will invite you to really take the time to think. That's what I say about what you're good at, what you like, who will need, but also work on yourself. Because the fact is, most of the time, we have more than the skill that we actually need to go for what we want. Is all of that self-belief and that self-worth and actually having the courage to go for what we want, the courage and the audacity. Because sometimes people around us could actually even kind of like judge us for even attempting to go for what you want. So really, don't forget to work on yourself as you're getting all of different skills, because that will also make a huge difference. And the stumbles on the way will eventually make sense someday. So don't worry if there is no a clear vision and a clear path that you just feel like you're racing through.
Wow, I think that's very, very powerful. There's so many things to kind of pick from, from your response, from the fact that a lot of the things that we believe of ourselves, or that we believe, we need to unlearn. And to do this, you have to be intentional about it. You went about this by, investing in yourself and getting a coach to kind of help you change your mentality of how you thought about money, for you to be comfortable with the route or the path that you're going in. And you also spoke very similar to how Dr. Engineer Lola as discussed, about your passion for wanting to invest in younger people to help them see better, be better, and believe that they're better, which I think is very, very important. So that's very, very insightful. Thank you so much for that, Yumna. I'm going to also now go to Uche and ask a very similar kind of question. I know you said you went into supply chain and you didn't want to go down the conventional route, but do you think that somebody can have a fluid career? Just go by what Yumna said, it's okay to not have one vision and say this is what I'm going for. It's okay to kind of work and stumble and try and get better, and until you find what it is that you have the passion for. So what are your thoughts? Do you feel the same? Do you feel like you could potentially start off with engineering and end up in non-engineering career or entrepreneurship, and there's nothing wrong with that? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for the question. I'm with Yumna and Dr. Lola. Not everybody will be a Dr. Lola that would stumble into civil engineering and love it and never leave it. Yeah, not everyone will be like Dr. Yumna that would be very fluid. The truth, guys, there's no path. Yeah, that it doesn't exist. You choose your path, make your path. You can train as an engineer and then decide you want to practice law. By all means, if it makes you happy, just do it. My life, do whatever makes you happy. Do whatever gives you satisfaction, fulfillment. Do whatever helps you to sleep at night and gives you peace. Whatever it is, be bold about it. First, I think that the key thing is identifying what it is. So don't be too rash. Number one, don't be. So you know how they ask. How many of us got asked, "What do you want to be when you grow up as a child?" How many of us are actually what we're doing based on what we said all those years ago? I remember I said I wanted to be like an IT person or computer, something. I don't even know where that landed. I'm sure I've said at some point in my life I want to go into HR. It's still something I say, but that's not what I'm doing. Do you see what I mean? And honestly, guys, the world is changing. The world is evolving. There are careers that are top careers now that was not a thing when we were in school. So if you think about cybersecurity, it was not something that was spoken about all those years. But does that mean because you trained as an engineer and now cybersecurity is a thing, then and you realize you have a thing for this thing, you cannot pivot? Of course not. So like Dr. Yomna said, just keep it as fluid as possible. I think the bottom line is do what you're happy. Just do what gives you fulfillment and satisfaction. Every other thing is really, really by the way. Every other thing is by the way. How you get there is also by the way. Honestly, at the end of the day, nobody cares. Nobody's going to say, oh, why did you spend 5 years or 7 years, depending on if ASU dealt with you with strikes, studying engineering only for you to come out and you say you want to do. I mean, we know people that study medicine that are doing entertainment now. There's no one path is the point I'm trying to make. It's choose your path based on what makes you happy, and just go with it and be fluid. The world is changing really, really fast. There's things that will come out tomorrow that we didn't have yesterday, and if it strikes your fancy and it makes you happy, just go for it. And again, like Dr. Yumna said, be bold, be audacious. Look, guys, we're already, as a Black woman in engineering, you're already a minority anyways. Rock it, be bold about it, be audacious about it. Take bold steps, because you've already taken the first bold step anyways, based on where you are. So don't be afraid to take bold steps. If you want to pivot, do your research and pivot. Just do whatever makes you happy at the end of the day. Really, that's all I can say.
Thank you so much, Uche, for that. I think that's very, very insightful, and it doesn't do justice enough to the point that you're making, because a lot of people don't necessarily feel like they have options. Dr. Yumna and Uche, did you find that your identity was tied to your, I guess, your title as an engineer? And this could have been maybe while you were studying, or when you were making that pivot to going into entrepreneurship, or when you were doing your research. Just a few minutes. Yumna, do you want to go first?
So the question is if my identity was linked to what I've studied, yeah? To being
to your title as an engineer. Did you find your identity was linked to your title as an engineer, or was it completely not relevant to you and it wasn't difficult for you to make the pivot into entrepreneurship?
No, definitely,
having studied?
Definitely no. For me, it was not tied to it. Simply because I tend to, when somebody asks me when I was in academia and people ask to describe myself, I would say I'm an intuitive person who likes to solve problems. So that fits in so many different things. It's not about the skills that you have or the knowledge that you have of a specific field, because knowledge is something you can acquire. You open a book and you acquire it. But it's that mindset, that way of thinking, that curiosity, that innovation and innovativity that actually thinks that is the core of who I am, that I'm bringing into those different spaces. So for me, I didn't see it as something that is attached to my identity. And actually, I'm being told of many times when I'm presenting myself as an entrepreneur. This woman emailed me on LinkedIn, like, "You're a doctor. Why don't you put your title?" I'm like, I guess not necessarily. Like, come on, it's important. You're a Black woman with the doctorate. Put it. Or even when I speak to investors, they tell me, put it there. Put all of these credentials that you had a fellowship with Royal Academy of Engineering. So I tend almost to forget, because for me is actually the what I enjoy regarding that creativity, that actually feel that what defines me in my career.
Wow, that is very, very powerful. Thank you so much. And I think it's it's refreshing to find that your identity was not tied to your title as a doctor, because a lot of people do find that their identity is their title. So when their identity does not align with the title that they have, it becomes a problem, and it can cause quite a lot of tension with the personal work and professional life as well. And lastly, Uche, very shortly, do you want to please just chip in, let us know your thoughts? Did you find that your title was your engineering title was attached to your identity as a person?
I'm the most titleless person ever. I don't even bother with my full name. Uche, that's it. Nothing before, nothing after. Because I personally, I think it's very shackling, if that is an English word. We will shackle ourselves if you allow yourself to get bogged down in all those titles. This is my personal view. So I think it's very freeing to just leave yourself untethered. Yeah. Because a lot of the things that we need to achieve, like Dr. Lola said, is in your mind. Actually, a lot of the things that we need to achieve, whether you see yourself as a problem solver or not, whether you see yourself as a go-getter or not, whether you see yourself as an innovator or not, whether you see yourself as a whatever you see yourself as, it starts from the mind. And so there's nothing as powerful as freeing your mind to be as unconstrained as possible. Break whatever mold that has been, whatever ideas that have been planted in your mind from your background, whether they said, oh, women are not, you cannot really find a lot of women in civil engineering, but that's not true. There's Dr. Lola, she's blazing the trail. Whether they've said, oh, you cannot do a degree at 65, but that's not true. I see a lot of posts on LinkedIn about people completing degrees at 70. Whether they say you cannot. So just refuse to be constrained by anything, whether it is your training or your background, or whatever it is. Refuse to be constrained by all those things, because actually in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. And it's only when you're unconstrained, you can free yourself to actually do anything you want to do, because you've not constrained yourself by saying, oh, but I've only trained as a chemical engineer, so that limits the industries that I can work, or I only know this, so that already narrows down, what I can do or not do. No, so that's really what I'm going to say. Unconstrained, detach yourself from all of those things and just leave yourself free.
Awesome. Well, on that note, thank you so much to our amazing panelists. We've had a very insightful discussion on the topic, which is very relevant to all of us on the call, I guess, and we've had different perspective from different panelists, and I think this gives you a very good holistic idea of what you can go on to do. And saying that you're maybe already a professional in the industry, does that necessarily mean that you're sticking to working as an engineer forever? It shouldn't, and it doesn't. But again, there are so many different people that feel very different ways, and there isn't one answer that solves everybody's, I guess, dilemma and questions. So on that note, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining the talk this evening. Please feel free to put your LinkedIn details into the chat. I know a few people already have, so we can get connecting outside the call. And on that note, thank you so much, guys. Have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.